give one final round of applause for Laura de la Mar.
Let me take you to the year 1998. It's the year Google was founded, and the year the movie Titanic came out, and I sang my heart out, and My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. Who did too? It's the year Bill Clinton did not have sexual relations with that woman. And it's the year I bought my first CD, I got my first kiss, and secretly had a Furby in my room, although it frightens me at night. And it was also the year I started working at our local restaurant. And it's a beautiful place with white linen tablecloths and sparkling chandeliers, and a waiter with a smile he's been perfecting over the years. And I'm wearing my brand new white blouse and a dark blue skirt and proper shoes with small heels. And can you imagine, we had to walk these for 12 hours. At the end of the shift, you need a fruit transplant, believe me. And here's Mark, and he's waiting for me to give my very first hospitality training. The training was: greet new guests, bring the menu, sell as much as you can, quickly transport orders, never return empty-handed, and oh, don't forget to smile. And shift after shift, I became more skilled with carrying plates and balancing trays, but no shift went by without me causing a lot of noise, shattering plates and glasses. But every time I cycled to work, I felt less motivated. Not because I didn't like the job, no. It was because of all the mistakes I make, because Mark took me to the back and there I was squeezed between the dishwasher and the walk-in fridge with Mark yelling at me, "You are useless." And every time I passed the flipping doors, there was always a lot of eyes looking at me, the guests who heard everything word for word. And I'm sure if you met me back then, you would have been convinced that I was not hospitable. And honestly, I wasn't. It took me a few years to realize that I wasn't the problem. Neither was Mark, but the culture of the company was. So let me ask you a question. Who of you ever had a boss like Mark? Oh, wow. Who's actually sitting next to that boss right now? Oh. Well, what was the impact on your hospitality? So the impact on me was that I didn't like the job, because I didn't know how to handle complaints. I didn't know how to handle drunken guests, and I didn't know how to handle my own insecurities. I felt alone, failing, and unfit. I thought hospitality wasn't for me. But only years later, I came to realize that this can be a very interesting theme. The insight sparked my life mission, because I want to bring real hospitality into every industry in the world, because hospitality can make the world a better place. So, years later, I became a manager myself. And my first rule was comfortable shoes for everyone. But actually, it was quite challenging, because how do I get my employees to be more hospitable? And I struggled and I failed, and I felt so much like Mark. We spent thousands of euros on training and coaching and inspirational speakers, but it had no impact. What I didn't realize is that employees want to be hospitable, and most of them can be. It's not the employee's fault. It depends on the leadership, culture, and the system. So in the last 20 years, I've done a lot of research and wrote some books, and together with my company, we gave like hundreds of hospitality training, and helped companies in different sectors in improving hospitality. You know what's interesting? I found out that with the exact same training, one team went through the roof and the other made no progress. So training can be very effective, but only in the right conditions. A lot of people think that training is a holy grail, but I found out something completely different. And I'm about to tell you the secret in just 2 minutes. So what is it that most companies do? Well, they buy hospitality training. They send mystery guests. And they introduce protocols and scripts. And what's the effect? Well, you see a small peak in customer satisfaction, but after a few weeks, it flatlines. Employees try to be hospitable, but it feels artificial, fake, and not sincere. It feels like they have to be hospitable, but they don't want to be hospitable. Well, that's not hospitality, that's acting. And we all know the cashier with the smile and the look in her eyes. I'd rather be in Bali. Well, she's there, but her soul's on vacation. So when hospitality is implemented with rules and regulations, people feel disconnected. So we don't want to send more scripts and surveys and spreadsheets. No, the solution we need is to embed hospitality into the culture. We need hospitable leadership. But before I tell you a little bit more about the solution, who's in for a little game of bingo? Yeah? All right. Maybe practice a little bit first. So I count to 3 and you all shout out bingo. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Bingo! Yeah. Okay, so if you recognize an item, you just shout out bingo, all right? Let's go. So first, I'm so busy with all these priorities and tasks and projects. I want to invest time in improving hospitality and giving attention to my team, but when? I'm too busy. Bingo! So I've explained hospitality many times to my team and they all nod and they all agree. But when I'm not there, they don't do it. And I'm so busy with filling the gaps in my planning and it's so hard to find new staff, I can't be too picky. Bingo! Well, that's interesting. Cool. So let me tell you the truth. True hospitality isn't about service. It's about taking the lead and giving genuine personal attention from the heart so people feel seen, heard, and valued. Customers and employees. And it creates lasting customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty. So true hospitality thrives when it's embedded in a hospitable culture, where leaders embody it and where employees are empowered. So the solution is the 3 E's: embody, empower, and embed. So let's look at embody. So hospitality doesn't start with employees. It starts with leaders who embody it. And I know because I taught dance classes for 10 years. And when I showed a new move, students always move smaller. And if I want big motions, I have to exaggerate my own moves. And if I want them to dance with energy, I hate to give even more energy myself. So when we mirror others, we naturally tone it down. We make smaller gestures. And this works the exact same way in leadership. The culture of a leader, the behavior of a leader is culture in motions. Our actions always speak louder than our instructions. So if you want your employees to score an 8, you need to show at least a 9. So by embodying a high standard, you inspire your team to raise their game. But let me be clear. Hospitable leadership is not only about soft skills like inspiring and appreciating and giving attention to your team. it also requires hard skills like measuring, setting goals, feedback, and even sometimes making tough decisions. But if you focus on a high level, you are a magnet for talent. And I've seen it. Hospitable cultures are talent magnets. So don't just hire someone off the street just to reduce workload. And the cool thing is, we can measure this. So who of you measures the NPS, the Net Promoter Score? Well, many. Many companies also measure the eNPS, so the Employee Net Promoter Score. So how likely are you to recommend your employer? But I'd like to introduce the MNPS, the Manager Net Promoter Score. So how likely are you to recommend your manager? So it's important to embody hospitality. It starts with you. You are the most powerful tool in creating hospitality. So ask yourself, how can I embody next level hospitality even more? And how can I receive more feedback? And how can I help my team to thrive? So if you embody hospitality, it's time to empower. Empower employees and teams. So I identify 3 levels of hospitality. External hospitality is about making guests feel welcome. Internal hospitality is about making employees feel welcome. And inner hospitality is how hospitable you are to yourself. So many companies focus on external hospitality, but here's the blind spot. True hospitality starts from within. Happy employees are hospitable. Unhappy employees? They're not. So let's look at internal hospitality. So behavior is greatly influenced by the environment. You pass on the energy you receive. So employees who feel inspired and appreciated naturally send it to customers. So if the break room is filled with gossip about Pete and complaints about Anne, and if Ben doesn't want to work with Hardy, in the end, guests will feel it. So we need to take care of our emotional climate of the team, empower teams. So what about inner hospitality? So I found out that hospitality is emotional labor. It isn't always easy, right? And I see more and more demanding, difficult behavior and even aggression. And I also see that hospitable people are so much focused on helping others, they tend to forget about themselves. So we need to coach our employees to set boundaries in a hospitable way. So empower people and teams. So a few years ago, I met Caroline. And Caroline works at a hospital. And she got a broken leg, so she ended up being a patient in her own hospital. And the lack of hospitality shocked her because staff was running around, too busy to answer her questions, to give her attention. And she had to wait for many hours in pain with no information. So she talked about it. And her CEO asked her, would you run a project on improving hospitality in their hospital? And she said, yes, please. And with all motivation, she started. But after a year, she called me frustrated. She'd been training front office staff, but it had no impact on patient satisfaction. And they liked the training, but they say, well, we are already hospitable. Start with the doctors and managers. They don't even greet us. So we took a different approach. Caroline started small, only 3 teams. And first she focused on the managers and the doctors, making them aware of their role model. They were having conversations with the teams. What was holding them back? Well, one team was draining with gossip and negativity. The other team was drowning in workload. And the third team faced endless complaints of patients because of poor communication and long waiting lists. So Caroline coached the teams. She improved processes and made real changes to reduce both stress for both employees and patients. And suddenly, the pressure eased, complaints dropped, and energy returned. So, if you embody and empower hospitality, you are ready for the last step. We need to embed hospitality into the DNA of the organization. We need it to implement it in rituals, daily practice. And we need rituals in constantly introspecting, inspiring, and improving. So here are 4 tips for free for you today. So keep repeating your hospitality vision. Not just 5 minutes in your New Year's speech, but on a regular basis. And put it on the agenda like in team meetings or management meetings. And embed it in your HR process, like in selecting and onboarding new staff and performance reviews. And create a rhythm of improvements. So measure, reflect, set goals, train, repeat. So if you look at those 4 tips, who apply all 4? Well, it seems easy, but it's quite challenging. Why? Because we're so busy with all these projects, priorities like administration, meetings, projects, and hospitality. So if we are very busy, what have we learned? Which ball do we drop? The one that's not urgent, right? Hospitality is important, but not urgent. So that's why we tend to lose focus on hospitality. So if you implement this, you make improving hospitality into a habit. And that's exactly what Caroline did. She made hospitality not into a project or a program, but in a way of working. And this is where the magic happens. Instead of complaints, patients started sending thank you notes and cakes. And instead of lack of staff, she got open applications. And other teams wanted to join the movement. It became a movement. And she made it all in reality by empowering, embedding it, and embodying it. So, let me take you to the most important part. During my entire talk, I wasn't talking about management. I was talking about leadership. You don't need to be a manager to be a leader. Everyone can take the lead by being hospitable. A few years ago, I was waiting at an elevator when somebody tapped me on the shoulder. And it was a woman, she smiled at me, she said, "You probably don't remember me, but a few years ago I attended your hospitality training, and at that moment I was at a dark period because my team atmosphere was toxic and I was so busy with young kids and a husband struggling with mental health issues. After training, I just started doing it. I just tried to be more hospitable. In the beginning it felt a bit strange, but after a while I started liking it. It made me happy and it gave me energy. And now I come home after work with energy to give to my family. That experience touched my heart. It made me realize that with hospitality, we can make such a big impact in our lives. Because every small act of hospitality creates a spark. And together we can make a movement that not only transforms organization, but also lives. It starts with you. Will you lead with hospitality? Yes. Thank you.